right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Coavera, formerly Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Snyder, who is on the other coast in lovely New Hampshire. How you doing, Rob?
Great. Wishing I was in sunny San Diego, but it's 60 degrees and raining here, so that's something.
So summer's come already, yeah?
Yeah.
That sounds like my home back in Ireland,
Yeah.
which would be a nice summer's day, 60 degrees and rain. And so you're a serial startup founder, fellow at the Harvard Innovation Labs, and author of the book, The Power of Pull, What You Need to Know About Customer Demand to Build a Successful Startup and Why Most Founders Get It Wrong. And this book, has it been released yet?
It comes out in July, so
Comes out in
it's a
July.
couple
That's
weeks
what I
out.
thought.
Yeah.
So excellent. So by the time this goes live, this will be in July. So the book will be out. So you'll have released it by the time this goes out. And you serve as entrepreneur in residence and venture partners for early stage venture capital funds. Okay, so in the power of the pull, right? Customer demand, right, is the only thing that truly matters in entrepreneurship.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just explain that statement.
So when I got started trying to build my first startup, I knew what I wanted. We all know what we want. We want the growth curve that goes straight vertical. We want customers ripping the product out of our hands. And the question is like, how do you get there?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a bunch of things. I thought it was like, I have to be very good at sales tactics. I have to build a great product. I have to solve problems, solve pain points. And what I realized is after I tried to do all of those things, none of them worked. I just couldn't get customers to buy what I was trying to sell them. And that was terrible. 2 years of that. I know a lot of entrepreneurs are in that exact same situation where it makes sense on paper, it should work, they don't buy. What happened after that was our startup took off, went 0 to 4 million in 2 years, and it made no sense to me why they were buying. And so what I realized from doing that is the reason customers pull products out of your hand, the reason they have demand looks a lot different than what I thought it was previously. If they have demand, they will pull a product. In my case, it wasn't even a full software product. It was still a spreadsheet that I was doing. And they bought it despite how I sold it, which was with a 3-slide sales deck that was basically Comic Sans. So customer demand is this underlying thing that causes someone to buy. If it's present, they'll buy despite how you sell often. If it's not present, they won't buy no matter how good everything else is.
Yeah. So how does talk to me about the evolution from push to pull? Like, how do you get there?
So yeah, so in my case, I started just trying to push harder when people weren't buying. And by push harder, I mean on every front. I read all the sales books and was like, maybe I need to challenge them now, or maybe I need to whatever it is, insert sales tactic there. And it was also like, okay, well, they're saying they're not going to buy it. Maybe if I build more features, then they will want it. So that's pushing more. And maybe it's just that I'm not describing it big enough, making the pitch big enough, talking about value props big enough. And so when it feels like you're making the thing bigger to make them want it more, and you're trying to look up persuasion tactics online and reading books about persuasion, that's a sign that you are pushing.
Yeah.
Usually what happens though is at some point in that, someone kind of buys weirdly fast. They buy despite everything that you're doing, and they're like, yeah, it's kind of strange. In my case, I got a phone call from someone who was like, I have no idea what you were trying to sell to me, but you're a tech guy, so could you help me with this? It's like, all right, screw it, why not? In that case, where somebody buys it really fast, and they buy for a slightly different reason than what you're talking about, but it's like, all right, cool. That's a signal that there is some pull there underneath that you just have to figure out.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And what you're describing, I mean, I've seen it for sure. Yeah, they just continually building, adding new features, trying to rework the messaging, all of that kind of good stuff. Um, how do you unblock demand? And what is blocked demand? You just explain the concept of block demand.
Yeah, so we can think about demand. So we just need a way to understand this
Mhm.
demand thing.
Yeah.
It's really hard because if you think of it in terms of problems or pain points, what you'll do, which is like the typical thing, what you'll do, like what I did, is you'll go out into the world and you'll ask people what are their problems and pain points, and then you'll
Hmm.
have them say, you'll say, are those big pain points and big problems? And they'll say, why, certainly they are,
Hmm.
right? And so and they won't buy. And
Hmm.
so we need a way of thinking about demand where if we think about demand this way, it would be weird if they didn't buy.
Right.
And so I think about demand, specifically block demand, as you described,
Hmm.
is I am trying to do something. I have a project on my to-do list. It's something that I can't delay. I can't do something else. I have to do this now.
Hmm.
But the existing tools, methods, or options that are available to me are not good enough for getting me to do that thing. And
Right.
so those are the components trying to do something on one hand and blocked from doing it by my existing tools or options. If that's present, you can imagine kind of like water against a dam, just
Hmm.
pressing against it. And you show up and unblock it.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I mean, typically what you talked about earlier, though, was typically that is the way people approach it, isn't it? You know, you experiment, you talk to potential customers, you develop an MVP, viable product, and and then you start to try and go out and evangelize it. I mean, that's the typical path that
Yes.
most startups take, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Hmm.
It's exactly what we teach startups to do
Hmm.
in university and online and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is, it makes a ton of sense to do
Hmm.
that.
Yep.
The challenge is just what we miss is that everybody gets punched in the face when they do that, when they try to start selling.
Hmm.
And they almost always pivot when they try to start selling. And then something will eventually work because they figure out what people will pull, what they want to buy from doing that. My argument is that you can kind of not do all the 6 to 12 months of work
Right.
in advance that led you to go get punched in the face.
Mm. Yeah, because let's face it, I mean, it is the temptation is that 6 to 12 months is you're misdiagnosing the problem, right? So you're
Mhm.
saying, well, maybe it's how I'm selling. Selling seems to be okay. Maybe it's the marketing. Maybe I need to add some features. Maybe I need to have, I mean, you can spend a lot of time going through one element after another trying to see if that's the problem.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And
Mm.
in my experience, it's all down to this bad philosophy we have in our brains, which is like, I need to convince them. I'm pushing.
Mhm.
If only I do X, then it will convince them to buy from me, to want my product, to da 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 da. And it's just like that's if you think about it from a different direction, this is not how the world works.
Yeah, yeah, and then you obviously then it gets very difficult because then you just don't understand, as you said earlier, you don't understand why are they not buying? Like, what is the problem here? So, can you give me some examples? Don't name companies, but just examples of where this people who've transitioned to pull and how that has changed the trajectory of their business.
Yeah, one really fun example is a friend who, really like he's, 100 IQ points, probably higher than me, MIT, PhD, Media Lab guy, like
Mm.
just
That's pretty much everybody I know
I
is
know.
100 or so degree points ahead of
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I know. It's just, and so what he was trying to do, he was basically trying to convince people to buy his product and
Mhm,
pushing and pushing and pushing. It wasn't working. He was getting like unpaid pilots for his product, and that was the sign of mercy, basically, from them. They were just trying to say, "All right, you're really trying to push real hard. We'll give you, an
mhm,
unpaid pilot." Then those would just never convert. Nobody would
yeah,
use it. It was just awful. And so what I told him to do was just, hey, on your next sales call, when it feels like you're pushing, just ask the question, okay, what would you pay me to solve? Like, what would you pay me to take off your plate right now?
Hmm.
And they said, oh, thanks for asking. And they told a totally different product, totally different direction. It was like, he was trying to sell an AI coach for managers.
Hmm.
And they said, yeah, okay, not that at all. What we're really struck with is we're getting market research every quarter. And that market research is terrible, and we want it faster. If you can get us faster market research on the stuff that we're trying to get market research on, we'll pay you right now for it. He's like, oh, really? That's it? And that was his first customer. And then he got like multiple, in the next couple of weeks after spending, again, 2 years at zero.
Yeah. Solving a problem that people didn't have.
Yeah. So solving a problem, well, it's worse than that. Solving a problem that they would complain about having and
Right.
saying it was a really big problem that they like just weren't going to do anything about.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really key thing, Rob, is, and this is where a lot of people, fall down, and it's that is, yeah, I have an issue, there's a problem, it's a real pain or whatever, and you're there, fantastic, I can solve that problem, you're all excited, but the issue is, it's a problem I can live with.
Yes.
And it's just too complicated for me to fix and whatever, because it's going to involve other people and all that kind of stuff. But you're super excited because I have told you the problem that you solve. It's just that I don't care to have it solved.
That is so well said. This is the thing that I've been struggling to articulate because it's like the industry just like everybody in the world talks about pains and
Hmm.
problems. And those are not necessary nor sufficient for a purchase.
Hmm.
And so what I'm trying to do, and like, okay, fine. If you're at 100 million ARR, growing super fast, you can call it a problem, you can call it a pain.
Yeah,
People are going to buy. It doesn't
yeah.
matter. But
Hmm.
if you're at zero, or if you're at barely one and trying to get to 10, you actually need a very precise understanding of
Yeah.
why people buy things. Because if I hear that it's a big pain and a big problem, and I spend a year of my life building towards
Mhm.
that, and then you don't buy,
Yeah.
that's the worst. That's like the worst year of my life that I've just earned.
It's so true, and that's why, I mean, when I used to run Huthwaite, which is spin selling, one of the things that we used to teach very early to salespeople is exactly what we're talking about. The minute I engage in a conversation with you, you surface some issue, I go fantastic, I dive in on that, we spend all the time on that, and then I hang up and I think that was a fantastic call, we're going to do, and then I never hear from you again, right? Now, if I had taken the other tack where I actually spent a little time going, that's really interesting, Rob, I see that problem, and you start exploring it and then say, what are the implications of that? And if you don't deal with it now, what's going to happen? And then they suddenly say, well, nothing really, to be honest, we've lived with it for this long, I think we can live with it. Now you've just gotten a fantastic piece of information. Now you can move on to, as you said earlier, like, what are the issues that you can't live with any longer?
Yeah, that's such a good. And I think of it as, and I think that's like such a good way to
Mhm.
describe it. I think of it as like we have to ask the opposite of leading questions, or leading questions away from buying our product, which is
Right,
like,
right, yeah.
can't you just like the leading question every founder wants to ask is, wouldn't your life be better with this? And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, my life would be better with this, but there's a million things my life would be better with that I'm not buying right
Yeah.
now. So we have to ask the exact opposite of that. Is like, so can't you just do nothing here, basically?
Yeah, I just saw these things the other day that are like wetsuits, right? But they've got all this stuff built in, and you wear them on, and they'll do all this stuff to your body and everything. I was saying, oh, it's really cool. And I was like, oh, $2,000, not that cool. Sorry.
Yeah,
I moved on.
yeah.
But it's just funny, like in him again, you say, oh yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, but I'm not prepared to buy it. So,
Lots of things I'm not, and I think we often think that like, okay, if somebody is in that situation where they're describing the problem, describing the pain point, we can
mhm,
offer clear value. That like even if they don't really need to change right now, we can convince them to change.
yeah.
I don't know what your experience is with that. You have like way more experience in this than I do. I haven't seen that work.
No, I think until there's a real either there's a real opportunity that the person wants to unlock, right?
Yeah.
Or there's, as we said, there's that problem that they can no longer live with. In between that, there's lots of things they like, but there's no motivation to actually do it. And you could spend, and the thing is, you're never going to persuade me to buy something that there's not enough either opportunity or pain for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think there's that's just so interesting. It's
Mhm.
like I would in our minds as founders, we often think like, okay, the point of sales and the point of marketing is to convince people.
Mhm.
It's like I actually don't think that's the case.
No, I mean, that's the first rule of communication. People believe things, conclusions they come to themselves above
Yeah.
anything you can tell them. So if you can't go down and have a conversation with them and really uncover what's important to them, you're never going to get there. What would your advice be? Say there's somebody, they have a startup, maybe they're a year or two in, they're having all the issues that you're talking about, and they're thinking, well, all I need really is invest. I just need some more money to throw at this problem.
Yeah. First is I've been there. I've raised that money. And guess what happened the day after I raised the money? I still couldn't figure out who would buy my product. And it was worse because now I had more people to talk to about how I couldn't figure it out. So you need like money doesn't cause you to succeed. It can cause you to not run out of money, but it won't cause you to succeed. The only thing that's going to cause you to succeed is if you find demand out
Mhm.
there. And so money can buy you time, or you can, I mean, trust me, you can waste a lot of money and a lot of time not looking for demand, not trying to find it. And so, yeah, the only thing is finding demand. And it's a weird kind of thing because sometimes, like my friend that I mentioned, you can find it in one call with one
Mhm.
person. It just pops up randomly. Sometimes it takes forever to find it. It's not like a if only you do this for this specific thing for 2 weeks, you're gonna figure it out. It's just like, I don't know, maybe you'll get lucky.
Yeah. So what are lots of different ways you can approach this then? Because I mean, the thing is, as I said, you could get money, you could do paid everything and acquisition and all that kind of stuff. And again, I mean, you could invest money in paid acquisition to acquire the same people who aren't going to buy from you.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can spend a lot of money on ads
Mhm.
to have people visit your website and not buy,
Mhm.
or to come to demos and not buy. It's yeah.
Mhm.
You can.
So what
Google, Facebook will be happy to take your money.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what would be some of the ways you could approach this if you're in that situation right now where you're just about to dump a load of money into down that rat hole?
So the only question I ask in my head is, do I know who would be weird not to buy our product?
Hmm.
Who will pull it out of our hands? Who has pull? And who is that block demand trying to do something but stuck? If I don't actually know that, then spending money is not gonna help me very much. What I want to do is I want to go find that person, right? And
Hmm.
maybe, yeah, maybe getting 5 sales calls a week, 10 sales calls a week, I can hit my head against the wall enough times to try to figure out, maybe I get lucky once. But what I really want to do is I want to go out and get kind of firsthand experience. So I want to go and get someone to let me shadow them and
Hmm.
say, "Hey, you mind if I like come to your office, work out of your office for a day, see what you're working on, see if there's anything I can help you with?" And people will often say yes to that. And then
Hmm.
I'm going in person and getting a firsthand intuition for what is pull, what who could have pull, and what would that look like. And so that's the method that I typically recommend is like, don't do the secondhand stuff, don't do the interviews, don't do the like sales calls necessarily. If you don't know who's going to pull, go in person and find it, with your own 2 hands.
Yeah, because that's a great point too. Because the reality is, and anybody who's brought a product to market uh, will say the same thing: is that customers end up using the product in ways you never imagined, right? Or in different and therefore, you know, to your point, if you do what you're talking about and you go in and shadow them, etc., you're more likely to see those kind of things. Ah, that's interesting. I never thought of that because when you're building a product, you're conceptualizing off some set ideas.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And then you watch people use the product. And first of all, you get a lot of UX research of like, wow, I did not design this right. Like they are clicking 40 times. This is hard. But then you also will see people using it in weird ways. So like a startup that I know, he had a group of customers who basically bought despite the way he described his product. It was not targeted towards them. The people he targeted towards kind of didn't really care. There's this other group of people who were using it for a different thing in a different way. He's like, but I don't like, it's not for them. It's like, well, it turns out it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to sell it to you people who want it over here. I'm going to continue to try and sell it to these people who don't want it.
Yeah. This is what I wanted to build, so I'm going to force it onto the world.
And I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, is to realize that your idea was a good idea, but this is better.
Yes, 100%. And like sometimes reality just has to teach you that, right? Like you have to hit your head against the wall enough times and it not work for you to appreciate the people for whom it does work, and for you to appreciate that, okay, if they actually have demand, they really value our product. We don't have to convince them to use it. They don't negotiate. Maybe we just design around them.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. A great point to finish on is when you find that person, you find that customer is design around them, and the other one's going forward, and iterate based on the people who actually want to use whatever it is you're doing, and then iterate from there.
Totally. It's like, especially for overachievers like us, you're going to look across your customer set and say, wow, these people aren't happy. I should figure out how to make those people happy. And in fact, basically every startup tries that for a while, realizes those people just didn't have demand and wouldn't be happy no matter what you did. They wouldn't use it no matter what you did. And so the easier path is look at the people who are all green on your usage dashboard and say, what if we just did more for them? What if we just found more of them and just, you know what? If we only served them, we would describe our product this way. We would sell it this way. And then as you said, you redesign everything around them.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, well, this is fantastic. All of Rob's information will be below this, and a link to the book. Hopefully, this comes out at the same time as the book, or if before, we'll add it later. But before we go, Rob, please do remind people about what you do.
Yeah, so I run a couple startups, and a bunch of startups bring me in to advise them to watch their sales calls and tell them, is there demand here? If not, what should we do, or how should we change?
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Rob, and thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.